So now we're going to try out the CPU with Fortnight. So you can see the settings we're going to use: 1920 by 1080, 60 FPS, and our quality preset is going to be medium. Hey everyone, Digital David here. Today in this episode of Newegg Now, we're going to be checking out the AMD 5600G CPU. I did purchase the CPU myself, and any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. Shout out to Newegg for sponsoring today's video, as well as Cooler Master for hooking us up with some great parts and components for this build so we can really test it out. If you're interested in anything you see here, from the CPU to any of the PC components, the link will be in the video description. Now let's go ahead, let's check out the build. So all the parts are readily available for this build on Newegg. You can shop it again with that link in the video description. You can see first up we have Windows 10, or you could get Windows 11 for this build. We have the Cooler Master master fans and the A71C for our air cooler for our CPU. 650 watt Cooler Master power supply. Overkill right now as the build currently stands, but it gives us some good headroom in the future if we want to end up, slapping a GPU in there someday. And then the best part of the build, the Sunset Orange Cooler Master NR200P. This is the plexiglass version with the really cool window, since we had that RGB in there. But if you wanted, you could just get the regular version as well. But I recommend getting the plexiglass window. It comes with both options. If you want it to look like a cheese grater, you can, or you could have it come with the plexiglass window and swap them out as you choose. Next up, we have our PCIe Gen 3, our 1 terabyte SSD M.2 drive. Then overkill for this build, but we have the Asus ROG Strix B550i gaming motherboard. Someday if we want to swap out, again, our processors to get Gen 4 speeds, we could do that. We could swap in like a 5600X, whatever we want, we could do that and add a GPU. The whole point of this build, though, for a work from home PC and all parts you can get, we decided to use the 5600G so we don't have to worry about trying to win a shuffle or buy a GPU from a scalper. We can just go ahead and get a nice current CPU that has great integrated graphics that you can actually still game on around 720p, maybe 1080p, depending on how high of refresh rate and the FPS you're trying to push. And last but not least, we got 32 gigs of Trident Z RGB RAM. Everything for this build coming out to around $1,100, $1,200. That'll vary depending on how many fans you want, if you want those fans, or if you want to swap out any of the other parts and components. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to get the CPU installed. So we're going to take this lever right here, we're going to pull it up, and now we're ready to take our CPU, and we're going to look for that gold corner right there, and we're going to match it onto the board where this little triangle is. So that's what we're going to do to gently put it in place. So you'll see it'll just drop right in. You won't have to force anything, and just line up that triangle with the little triangle in the corner right there. And then we just gently press it back down, and now you can see we have our CPU installed. Now we're going to prep the board by removing the default bracket right here, so you can see what we have installed on this board and what we're going to put there instead. So let's go ahead, let's do that right now. We're going to take our Phillips head screwdriver and just remove those 4 screws. Now we're ready to install the cooler, so go ahead, you can see we already have pre-applied thermal paste with this cooler, which is nice, and we're ready just to drop it right in. So again, we put the bracket there. You can see it's only going to go one way. So if you try to do it this way, you'll notice, hey, those screws aren't going to line up. So we can only do it one way. And then make sure at this stage for your cable management, I would recommend doing it with the cables as close over here as possible. So you can see that's how we're going to drop it up to line it in place. So that's what we're going to do right here. We're just going to go ahead, gently put it on, run those cables just like so. So just line it up, rest the screws in place, just like you see here on the bracket, and now take a Phillips head screwdriver and tighten all 4 of them down in place. So here we go. You can see what the cooler looks like fully installed. At this step 2, when you're tightening the 4 screws in place, be sure just to give each one a quarter of a turn or so and rotate before you just tighten one all the way down. Be sure to just spend some time giving each one a couple of turns as you move around, and then you can tighten them all down. Don't just tighten one all the way down and move on to the next one. Spread out your tightening and make sure that it's all going down flush together. Also, now you're ready to plug in your CPU fan, which you can see we did that right there. I'm going to leave the RGB unplugged right now because we'll be connecting more RGB to our header right there, and we'll be using a splitter cable. But there you go. You can see we have the cooler successfully installed. So now you can see the completed build right here with everything installed and powered on. Very pleased with the 5600G's performance so far. And I love our Cooler Master cooler up top, keeping it nice and cool. Now let's go ahead, let's dive into some benchmarks with the CPU. First up, we're gonna take a look at CPU Z. You can see our bench results right here for our single core score and our multi-threaded score. And then you can see here's the CPU tab. Feel free to pause the screen if you want to look at anything else in more detail. 7 nanometers, you can see our core voltage. Then we can learn more about the clocks for our CPU. So a lot of helpful information for our Ryzen 5 5600G. Now we're taking a look at our Geekbench 5 results. You can see we got a single core score of 1500 and a multi-core score of 7977. We have a nice breakdown here of all of our system information and our CPU info. Then we have a nice breakdown of our single core performance right here. So you can see all the results on the screen. Feel free to pause it if you want to look at it in more detail. And lastly, we have a nice breakdown of our multi-core performance right here as well, with our multi-core score of 7977. Now you can see our Cinebench scores right here. So first up, for our multi-core score, we got 10,040, and our single core score, we got 1416. Here's a breakdown of our ranking for our multi-core score. You can see we finished number 4. Now we can look at that same breakdown again for our single core score, where we definitely increased and get closer towards the top. You can see we finished number 2. So now we're going to try out the CPU with Fortnight. So you can see the settings we're going to use: 1920 by 1080, 60 FPS, and our quality preset is going to be medium. So here we go. You can see what the game looks like. Check it out. I'm going to move it back and forth so you guys can pay attention to the quality that we get here and how everything looks. We have our FPS counter on the screen as well, where we can track our CPU and GPU usage as well as our RAM. So here we go. You can see how everything looks right here. Honestly, for 1080p so far, it's better than I anticipated. It's definitely going to be bearable to play with this system and this CPU. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I thought it'd be a lot worse than it is. I'm not saying it's fantastic or anything, but so far so good. Doing a pretty good job. I mean, you can see a lot of the artifacts in the game are still loading and populating. But so far so good. Come on. Got him. Got him. Got him. Let's go. Got him. Come on, got him! Got him! Got him! All right, we'll take it. Hey, we won, baby! Let's go. All because of that CPU. So overall, I have a lot of really good things to say about the 5600G. I think it's a great value CPU if you're not looking to buy a GPU right now due to the crazy market, but you still want to get a fully functioning computer built today. This is definitely going to be one of the options you're to consider. And later on down the road, if you want to add a GPU to your build, you'll be able to do that. But my biggest complaint isn't about gaming performance. Yes, 1080p is iffy, but it's going to be probably good enough for you at this price point. 720p is going to be a lot better, but my biggest complaint is it's only PCIe 3.0 supported, so we can't take advantage of PCIe 4.0 speed. So that's my biggest knock against this CPU, but overall in regards to price and performance, I'm very impressed and I would definitely recommend it, and I'm glad I used it in this build. Well, that concludes our video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget the product link will be in our video description below. Please go ahead, check it out, and do your shopping from there. Any purchase made through that link helps support our channel at no additional cost to you. So we're really grateful and thankful for all of your support. While you're at it, can you go ahead and hit that like button for us? And subscribe to our channel. We have new content coming out daily, and we don't want you to miss anything. Please go ahead and give us a follow online and make it a clean sweep. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. You can message us on WeChat, check out our website, and join our free newsletter. Thank you guys so much for being here. Don't forget new content daily, and we can't wait to see you in our next video.